The next tree is just looking at part of the central area, and then behind it I'm going to have branches from other trees in the background. So I'm going to go up and down with on-off pressure movements to start with, just to get interest on the textured bark. And really the pressure that you put on and the way you apply it gives you that instant texture. And there we have the shadow side of the bark. I'm slowly lifting pressure as I go across, and then it's the light side. Coming down here, I will increase pressure to give a good dark dip in there, and then perhaps go up with an interesting shape over here that will be partially in shadow from the other side. This gives us the negative shape behind which I'm going to pass the other branches. So I'm going to just finish off getting the interest of texture here. Perhaps another branch coming up here to allow us that extra shape to pass through. Although this is quite a wide pencil strip, you can, if you go on your toes, produce some very delicate marks. So if you wanted to put some detail into that bark texture in the same movement, which is still the zigzag up and down vertical movement, but working on your toes, you can get some very delicate shapes, and that also helps you define the light edge if there's nothing dark behind. So just little uneven strokes down, and you will have the light side to that tree in place. And what I want to do now is place the other branches behind, and if we imagine they're some distance away, they can be done as flat silhouette shapes. So we could have one passing here. I'd go up to the side, and then treating it as a flat silhouette, work away and up to the other side, and then taking it from here across and out and away again. So that goes out into the finer twigs, and then taking up again and stopping there and across, perhaps another one coming up there, so that you're beginning to see these other branches from other trees forming interesting shapes across the negative that's been left from the initial one. And they can almost merge into each other when they're in the background. You don't have to differentiate as you would with the foreground one. So they can be quite merging and flat. This one's coming down here, so I've got to bring it out here and into a shape. And this one over here, I could bring that up to the light edge and into a shape, and it could join that one and then go up for another one, and this could be going up and coming out there. And that's how we look through these little areas and see the woods beyond. Some trees, of course, have the smoother, rounder barks, so I'm going to talk to you now about how I feel my way round when the texture is going round rather than up and down. So again, very gentle grazing, and I'm going up and down, but I'm not putting a texture. This is just the shadow side of a tree that's going to have the round feel to it with the texture going round the bark. And on this image I'm going to put foliage behind, so that will be supporting the other side. So I'm starting to feel that way across, and I'm looking at the pencil to find out how much of a pointed tip I've got, and working around with one or two of these textured marks to get the feel of that bark as it circles. And then up to the shadow side, so that I can crisscross away and start getting a larger foliage mass. And I'm looking as I do this for any little opportunity to include structure. If something appears that looks a little bit like a light line, I will then take it on to a bit of counterchange and just let a branch or a twig go beyond it and back again. You notice I'm always looking at the tip of my pencil so that I'm making sure what shape it is, so that I've either got the chisel or the point according to what I need for the area I'm doing. And I can put a few leaves up here going across, and a dark behind a light area to bring it forward, pushing up to get an interesting silhouette edge, crisscrossing back to put in my dark negative shadow recess shapes. And all the time I'm thinking about the variety of tone I've got. The tone of the dark behind to bring the light forward, the tone where it's quite flat, the way I'm toning it on, but I'm getting a texture on it, and all the interest that one gets with these negatives inside the darks. And back now with up and down movement so that I can define that edge. And perhaps even leave a little light piece there so that it's not going all the way down, making it a bit more natural. And then perhaps a few pull down strokes to say that that's where that foliage mass actually stops. And I'm pulling down and out, crisscrossing. And I'm beginning now to see the shape of that trunk and can work from the other side up to and away, having regard for where there might be a dark there and how it can be brought into the other side before it does something else, rather than having one side looking different to the other. I always try to imagine what it would be like if it was going behind. So I'm going up into the mass and then out and down, some pull down strokes, and back towards the main trunk again, and then up again and out. And I'm beginning to feel a little bit of a light trunk coming there, or a light stem or something. So I'll take it from there and twist a bit. There's something there that I could go up to suggest that's fitting in there. And really, I just go by what's happening when I'm doing these exercises. If a trunk or a branch appears, I use it. I'm going up to this side again and crisscross away and dark behind there. Another lost line, which would be nice to keep in. And now I'm going to very gently blend this a bit more and just take it across unevenly. And I'm lifting the pressure so much that it's just a gentle graze. I don't really want to see on this tree a sudden dark and light side. I'd like to just graze it across and get that feeling of the gradual light. And of course, always try to think of any reflected light so that you can go back to the side where you know it's going to be in shadow and just put a little bit more shadow near the edge rather than on the edge. And that will give you that feeling of reflected light. And then on your toes again to enhance any of these textures that you want to go across to make the trunk feel round. So a bit more down the base here, again pushing up and out, a little bit of support. There's a light one, I'm going to take advantage of that. What I might do that's a little bit different is to bring some foliage in front of it. So here I would cut in with a rich dark behind and say that this bit of foliage is going to crisscross in front of the tree. So that's coming in front and over to the other side, pushing upwards and pulling down. Mainly because of the fact that it's coming towards me anyway, I want to get more contrast here. So I'm going to have my darks against the contrast of untouched white paper. And I'm going to look for interesting shapes for these shadows. Rather than just blocks of shadow, I might wind down a bit and give an interesting shape and bring the side of this down with a bit more depth. And over to this side. So I'm really feeling my way around behind the tree, in front of the tree, and getting as much contrast where I've got the light side. Now if this was something growing up quite high, there might be a shadow cast across the tree, in which case I would go up and down and cast a shadow from this over here onto that side. So on this little demonstration I've been showing you how to put your darks behind to bring the lights forward, how to build up an edge that has a reflected light by just increasing the tone within the edge, and then how to put a cast shadow across the tree from something that's growing up over here, and then you could carry on with your little study and take it further across. For the last little exercise I'm going to show you, we need a chisel side to the pencil. And I quite often do a little tonal block to make sure I can get a very wide area. And I'm doing trailing leaves, where they, almost like a weeping willow type of tree, where they trail across, and these are just pull down strokes. So anything that's trailing, whether it be trailing pot plants or things over the walls where you get the trailing plants, it's just these pull down strokes with regard for the negative shapes that are going to be within. And of course thinking of the silhouette edge as they're coming down. So I'd leave quite a bit of light on top so that the light can hit that, but underneath I would put the strokes closer together so that the final leaves that trail down against the lighter background are more obvious silhouettes. So it's just little pull down strokes, and thinking of these dark shadow recess areas within. One or two can be pushed up at the top where they haven't been heavy enough to trail quite yet. So there could be a little bit of a silhouette shape at the top. And then the ones that come towards you more can be longer. And very dark underneath. That's when you would cut in and let some of the lighter shapes overlap. And then you can look into it and make sure you've got some interesting edges. So you can just build up the darks and pull down one or two little leaves that are more on their own at the edge. And these would splay out this way. And you can see the benefit of having a chisel shape, because we get quite big tonal blocks quite quickly, but you can always turn it if you want to and get the more delicate leaves at the edge, and you do that by getting the narrower side. So always be conscious of what side of the pencil strip you're using, whether it's the wide or the narrow, and how you have to turn it. You can just introduce a little bit of support so that you can understand what type of tree it is. And then bring down the texture on the trunk and anchor it to some surface, and perhaps bring down the other side a little bit more to make it more interesting. And a really dark recess in there, really dark recess there, and then just an interesting edge. You begin to see then underneath the tree and get the three-dimensional feel. So there I've shown you a few techniques for trees and leaf and foliage representation in the form of exercises for you to practice. And in the next programme I'm going to put them all together to do a little study with a couple of large trees as the type you would find in parkland, and relating them to the ground and a little bit of background.
Now available to buy. Try these techniques at home whenever you wish. The extended DVD of today's workshop is now available from the Painting and Drawing channel. For further information and to order your copy, go to www.paintingdrawingchannel.com.